The 1970s sitcom What's Happening was one of the best shows of the 70s, and one that many fans, young and old, still love today. It was based on the film Cooley High, written by Eric Monty. The show was produced by the famous Bernie Orenstein, Bud Yorkin, and Saul Turteltaub. But what made the show a huge hit were the incredibly talented cast members. The cast consisted of a group of seasoned actors, newcomers, a dancer, and a stand-up comic who all came together to create some of American TV's most memorable characters. Sadly, many of them have since passed away. Let's learn the tragic details about the What's Happening cast and their lives. Mabel King. Mabel Elizabeth Washington was born in Charleston, South Carolina on Christmas Day, 1932. She grew up in Harlem, New York, and eventually became a gospel and nightclub singer. She spent much of her early career as a singer before transitioning to acting in her mid-30s. She married Melvin King and became known as Mabel King, which was her professional name even after she divorced Melvin in 1989. They had one son together named Larry. Mabel King began her acting career in theater. She appeared in Porgy and Bess as Maria, which was her debut role. She later played Ernestina in the Broadway production of Hello, Dolly. In 1972, she appeared in the musical Don't Play Us Cheap. The same year, she appeared in the film version. Both the stage musical and film were written and directed by Melvin Van Peebles, who helped launch the careers of talented black entertainers through his films. The 70s was the decade when more films and TV shows about black Americans were being created, and Mabel was at the right place at the right time. She appeared in the films Ganja and Hess in 1973 and The Bingo Long Traveling All-Stars and Motor Kings in 1976. But she got her big break when she was cast as Mabel Mama Thomas in What's Happening. She played the stern but loving mother of the two main characters, Raj and Dee. The character remains her best-known role. But Mabel King's career didn't slow down after What's Happening. In fact, she later appeared less on the show as she had a few disagreements with the direction of the show. She had guest appearances on popular shows like Barney Miller and The Jeffersons. She also starred in hit films like The Wiz, The Jerk, Scrooged, and Dead Men Don't Die, which was her final film role. Sadly, Mabel left us way too soon. She was diabetic and faced many health problems in her 60s. She eventually became wheelchair-bound and even had both her legs and one of her arms amputated. Tragedy struck when her only son Larry died in 1996 at age 42. Mabel King passed away November 9, 1999, at age 66. Before we tell you more about the What's Happening cast, be sure to give this video a like and subscribe to our channel for more. Fred Berry. Fred Berry played Frederick Rerun Stubbs on What's Happening. This character is easily one of the most recognized sitcom characters in TV history. He grew up in an inner-city housing estate in St. Louis, Missouri. He had a knack for dancing he developed during his youth. He dreamt of becoming a professional dancer and was also eager to become an actor. In the 70s, he joined the dance troupe The Lockers. With The Lockers, he performed on SNL and Soul Train, but he became a huge star when he was cast as Rerun on What's Happening. The show gave Fred a platform to show off his comic talents. There were also several episodes where he got to show off his dancing skills. His beret, suspenders, and high-waisted trousers became part of Rerun's uniform. Even after the show ended, Fred Berry was often seen dressed up in this outfit. After the show ended, he appeared on the short-lived sequel. He also had a few roles in films like Vice Squad and Big Money Hustlers. His character was much loved by hip-hop stars and new generations of black American entertainers. He made guest appearances on shows like Scrubs and In Living Color. He also appeared as Rerun in Snoop Dogg's short film, Murder Was the Case. He appeared as himself in the 2003 film Dickie Roberts' former child star and the 2007 film In the Land of Merry Misfits. He also appeared in one episode of the hit 90s sitcom Martin. In fact, Martin acted in one episode of What's Happening early on in his career and spoke fondly about his fellow cast members. Fred Berry became extremely successful through Rerun. Unfortunately, he struggled to handle the temptations of fame and wealth. He struggled with drug and alcohol addiction for much of his life. Luckily, he managed to kick this habit towards the end. He continued appearing in public as Rerun and gave interviews discussing his character and the show. He also traveled to South Africa with a dance troupe to celebrate Nelson Mandela's anti-apartheid battle. Sadly, his health problems never left him. Fred Berry died in 2003 at age 52 while recovering from a stroke. Shirley Hemphill. Shirley Hemphill began her entertainment career as a stand-up. She performed at the famous Comedy Store in LA at night while working as a hairdresser during the day. She became friends with Jenny Jones, who was also a stand-up. Decades later, Shirley reunited with many of her What's Happening cast members on The Jenny Jones Show. Shirley made a few TV appearances in the 70s in shows including Good Times and The Richard Pryor Special. When she received the role of waitress Shirley Wilson on What's Happening, she became a star. She loved the role and often spoke fondly of her experiences working on the show. She reprised the role in the sequel, What's Happening Now. In the 80s and 90s, she had a few guest appearances on popular shows like The Love Boat, Trapper John M.D., and The Wayans Brothers. She also had a small role in Chris Rock's '93 comedy, CB4. She also continued to perform stand-up throughout her career. She traveled to perform for American soldiers stationed overseas as well. Sadly, Shirley Hemphill passed away in 1999 at age 52 from kidney failure. Thalmus Rasulala. Thalmus Rasulala was born as Jack Crowder in Miami, Florida on November 15, 1939. He began his acting career in 1960, appearing in an episode of the popular series Adventures in Paradise. He spent much of his early career with bit parts on TV shows like Perry Mason, The Twilight Zone, and One Life to Live. His film debut was a small role in the 1970 film The Out-of-Towners, but his big break came in the 1972 blaxploitation film Cool Breeze, based on the popular novel The Asphalt Jungle. He played Sidney Lord Jones, who was the leader of a gang of bank robbers. By now, Jack Crowder was known by his unforgettable stage name, Thalmus Rasulala. He spent much of the 70s acting in some of the best blaxploitation films, including Blackula, Willie Dynamite, and Friday Foster. On What's Happening, he played Bill Thomas, Raj and Dee's father who was separated from their mother. He appeared occasionally on the show but remains one of its most memorable characters. Following his work on What's Happening, Thalmus Rasulala focused mainly on films. He had supporting roles in films like Born American, Bulletproof, Lambada, and Mom and Dad Save the World. His final role was in the 1992 film Hits. Sadly, he died at the age of 51 to a heart attack. The surviving cast members. Eric Monti was a screenwriter and television writer. He wrote the screenplay for the popular film Coolie High, which depicted the lives of Black American teenagers as they were gearing up to graduate high school. The film and its characters inspired the stories that made up What's Happening. Eric Monti was also responsible for creating Good Times, as well as creating some of TV's most memorable characters, like George and Louise Jefferson. Sadly, he often didn't receive credit for his work and had arguments with the creators of his shows. He was at odds with Norman Lear, who created Good Times. He also had issues with Bernie Orenstein, Bud Yorkin, and Saul Turteltaub, who produced What's Happening. He struggled with drugs and homelessness and hasn't written for TV or film since 2001. But he's now an accomplished author, and there's a rekindled interest in his career. Ernest Thomas played Raj Thomas on the show. He began his career as a theater actor, but became a household name through What's Happening. He also appeared in the sequel show. He had a small role in the TV series Roots. He also had a role in the hit comedy A Piece of the Action alongside Sidney Poitier, Bill Cosby, and James Earl Jones. Since moving on from Raj, Ernest has worked mostly playing bit parts and making cameo appearances on TV shows. He also found a new generation of fans when he played Mr. Omar in Everybody Hates Chris. His life wasn't easy, as his brother passed away from AIDS. His brother had come out as gay and later as transgender and struggled to find acceptance from his family. Despite his struggles, Ernest's faith has kept him going strong. He has a few upcoming films in production, so we'll still see more of his work. Haywood Nelson played Dwayne Nelson. He had a few bit parts on shows like Sanford & Son and As the World Turns. He also had a recurring role on the short-lived comedy Grady. After finishing his work as Dwayne, he played a few bit parts on popular shows like Kojak. He appeared as Dwayne in an episode of The Brady Bunch Hour and had a cameo appearance as himself in an episode of The Parkers and in the film Dickie Roberts' former child star. Today, he's a businessman outside the industry and only makes occasional public appearances. Finally, Danielle Spencer played the sharp-tongued Dee Thomas. Apart from these shows, she only had a few bit parts on other popular TV shows. In 1997, she had a cameo as a veterinarian in the film As Good as It Gets. What's interesting about that is Danielle went on to become a veterinarian and has been practicing for over 20 years. She released a book about her life as a child star called Through the Fire, Journal of a Child Star. She also occasionally speaks as a motivational speaker, encouraging others to look after their health, having survived spinal injuries and breast cancer. Now it's time to hear from you. Do you think these cast members and Eric Monti got their due? Let us know in the comments section below. And before you go, make sure you give this video a like and subscribe to Facts First if you haven't already. Click the bell icon to stay updated on all our latest content.